Hi guys, James at Goddard Radio Moscow Beer and Metal Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we're going to continue on with my series of Kiwi beer reviews that I've been doing for you over the last little while, and this is the final one in the dozen reviews that I've been doing for you from Auckland in New Zealand. So this is my last Kiwi beer review for probably quite a little while actually, but hopefully I can do more when I do make it back to New Zealand. So for this one we're going to go down to Nelson at the top of the South Island and visit the McCashin family brewery and have a taste of a beer from their Stoke beer range, and this is the Stoke Bomber Smoky Ale. Now if you've watched my channel for maybe about a year or so, you will know that my kind of love of craft beer started with going to Bamberg in Germany and tasting the Schlenkerla Rauch beers. So I thought this would be a really good way to kind of sign off from my kind of short series of Kiwi beer reviews, and I hope you have enjoyed the series. But anyway, as is usual with my reviews, I'll take you through a very short history of the brewery. It will only be 2 or 3 minutes long, but if you do want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. The brewery website's in the description for you below, along with a link to the other reviews that will hopefully add from these guys in the fairly near future. But anyway, the McCashins brewery was founded in 1981 by former All Black rugby player and farmer Terry McCashin, who is widely regarded as being one of the founding fathers of the craft beer renaissance in New Zealand that occurred in the late 80s and throughout the 90s. As I said to you, the brewery is based in Nelson at the top of the South Island in New Zealand, and upon its formation in 1981 there were actually only 2 other breweries in the whole of New Zealand, but today, since this renaissance has gone on, Nelson alone has 11 different craft breweries. This brewery though is based in the Rochdale Cider Factory, and the Rochdale Cider Company was founded in the late 1930s, and the building that the company's based in was actually built in the 1950s, so it does have a little bit of a legacy behind it. But since the McCashin brewery was actually founded, they established the Max beer brand, and this was bought by Lion Nathan in 1999. However, the brewery remained owned by Terry McCashin, but it was leased out to Lion Nathan in the year 2000. Now, Lion Nathan moved the production of Max Gold, which was the brewery's most popular beer, from Nelson to Auckland in 2005, and that year they also acquired the Shed 22 Brewing Company in Wellington and their brew pub, and this became Mac's first brew pub. And there is another one of these in Auckland at the waterfront, so you will find it down there just if you turn right at the sort of seaside of Queen Street. There's quite a few little kind of good craft beer bars in that section of the city in Auckland. But the Max brand underwent some kind of rebranding and stuff. They introduced a whole load of beers, but later they completely moved out of the McCashin brewery by 2008. And in April of 2009, Dean McCashin, Terry's son, moved back into the brewery, and he re-established this brewing operation as a wholly craft beer operation, and he established the Stoke beer brand as it's known today. And he said at the time when he was kind of getting the thing off the ground that he wanted to restore the brewery to its former glory and not have a corporation come in and thin it out the way Lion Nathan had done. So it's quite a commendable achievement that these beers are quite popular in New Zealand and quite widely available. So it's good to see a brewery that's kind of sort of gone the wrong way, I guess, if you like, a little bit, and then kind of come back quite strong. So really cool little story behind this brewery in my opinion. But anyway, there's quite a few different beers available from these guys, so go and check out the brewery website in the description below, as I mentioned to you. But we'll get on to the tasting of this guy now. Just bring up the camera and let you have a little quick look at the artwork on this guy. Very simple, not too much to see. That is the McCashin Brewery's symbol on the top of the beer there. I'm not sure how to list this beer, whether it's McCashin Brewery or McCashin Family Brewery, but it tells you a little bit on the back as well. It says, Stoke brewed bomber to perfection. Our intriguingly refreshing Stoke Bomber Smoky Ale is built upon a base of Munich and lightly roasted malts. Hints of beechwood smoke reveal themselves between the layers of biscuit and dried flowers. The finish is nuanced and lingering, with the toasted wood and late addition of organic hop tang creating a mysteriously mellow combination. Take on your next rendezvous. And this guy is 5.7% alcohol by volume, and this guy apparently is a 650ml bottle, so it is actually quite a big one. It's 2 of these little 330 ones, I guess. But without further ado, let's get it open and we will get on with the tasting. So if you don't know, beechwood is how they actually smoke these Rauch beers in Germany. You know, they basically smoke the malt using the beechwood, and Schlenkerla actually do one where they use oak wood for Christmas, and they call that the Eiche, which is just the German word for oak. So it's actually quite a cool way, and it gives it a really kind of unique and meaty character, these beers. The Rauch beers are famous world over. But anyway, we'll get on with the tasting of this guy. So as you can see, it's poured a nice kind of coppery, reddish amber colour actually. It's got just about a finger of a frothy white head there. There are some bigger bubbles in there. If I put my fingers behind it, you can see it's not really transparent. It's quite a hazy one there. Big bubbles sticking to the side of the glass and just a few little bubbles going up towards the bottom of the head. Really nice looking beer actually. So in terms of the aroma with this guy, yeah, you can pick up the sort of smoky and meatiness that you would expect from the sort of Rauch beer style, if you like. It's a bit more mild than some of the ones I've come across, but it's got a big malty nose. As I say, there's a good bit of sweet caramel in there, some woody notes and a little vanilla, but it does have a big meaty, it really does have a big meaty character to it, this one, which is, you know, as I was saying, you expect of the Rauch beers. But it's really nice actually. The aroma of this guy reminds me a lot of Schlenkerla. It's a bit more bacon-like rather than a smoky meat, if that makes sense. The smoky note, or the smoky and meaty note in this one is a bit more bacon-like, a bit more porky than some of the other ones. It just has a little bit more of a kind of sweetness to it, if that makes sense, than some of the German ones I've had. But yeah, just take a little bit of time when you're trying this beer just to take in the aroma and have a little go of it. Beer's always subjective, you know, so some of the flavours and aromas I mentioned in the beer you might not pick up, you might interpret them differently. This is just my interpretation of the beer. But this reminds me a lot of the Schlenkerla. They've got all the elements here. You've got a big malty nose, a big meaty characteristic and a good bit of smoke in there. But underlying that you just have a nice kind of sweet caramel note, woody notes, a little bit of vanilla, and no real hop character to it, but it's a really nice smell. I love the smell of these kind of Rauch beers or smoked beers. But without further ado, let's get on and taste this guy. So this is the Stoke Bomber Smoky Ale from the McCashin family brewery. Cheers. Now that is really interesting. I mean, I've done a few smoked beers before, and I think this guy probably is the closest one I've actually had to Schlenkerla. It definitely has a different mouthfeel to it. It's not quite as syrupy, but in terms of the flavour, this guy is probably the closest one I've come across to Schlenkerla, and that's just on one sip, so it might develop a little bit further. Yeah, it's definitely a little less syrupy than Schlenkerla. The meat part of the beer, sort of meaty and smoky flavours, are very close to Schlenkerla, but the malt base isn't quite as sweet and caramelly, if that makes sense. So it's a nice, interesting little quirk to it, I would say. So in the flavour of this guy, you've got a nice roasted, meaty flavour that just goes right around the edge of the tongue. That kind of ashy character just goes right around the edge. The malt base is a little bit more mild, if you like. You do have a little bit of sweet caramel, but it's more, I would say that the woody and vanilla notes in this guy are a good bit more prominent, and the smokiness and meatiness are the more dominant kind of components of the flavour, I would say. Yeah, it builds actually a nice oily character, and you just get a little bit, the woody kind of flavours in the mouth kind of build up, and you have this nice oily feel to it. It's actually a really interesting flavour, this. As I say, it's quite like the Rauch beers from Bamberg, but it's just got that little bit of a different mouthfeel to it. It's really nicely done. And I should point out that these beers are more of a tasting beer than a kind of sessionable beer. You know, I would only drink probably one of these when I'm out drinking, I guess. But yeah, you get a nice caramel, slightly caramel sweetness. As you go into it a little bit more, the caramel does become a little bit more prominent, and you just get that little bit of sweetness. But you've got a nice roasted caramel and brown sugar element in the middle. But you've got it has a really nice blend of sort of woody and vanilla flavours in there as well. The meatiness is quite prominent in this one, and it has a little bit of smoke. And there is perhaps just a teeny little bit of earthy character from the hops. But overall, the flavour is more of a kind of big malty sweet, and I think this beer's done very well. And I lived in Germany for a little bit, so I do have a good experience of German beers. And this guy really is probably the best kind of the most similar beer to some of these German Rauch beers. And I'm not sure if that's exactly what they were going for, but you know, that's how it's kind of turned out to me. It's probably the closest beer I've found so far to these German Rauch beers, the sort of New World version, if you like. In terms of the mouthfeel of this guy, I would say it's mid-bodied. It's a bit lighter, as I said, than the German Rauch beers. It's a kind of light to pushing mid-bodied one. The Rauch beers tend to be a bit more full-bodied and a bit more syrupy, but it's got a very light carbonation, nice and soft. As I said, it's got a nice big malty and sweet character. A little bit of oiliness to it, which, as I say, brings out the kind of woody and vanilla flavours in the beer, which is really nice. And it just has that little bit of lingering dryness, which comes from the kind of smoky character to it. But overall, it's got a really nice flavour to it, this beer. I've highly enjoyed it, and as I said, it reminds me a lot of my time in Bamberg, so obviously it's going to get a good rating from me. But if you do get the chance, definitely go and give it a try. Overall, very, very nice beer, and I would actually like to try some of the other beers in their range if this is what they have the ability to do. And it's, as I said, the story behind this brewery is quite interesting, because it was one that kind of went off a little bit in the wrong direction, and now it's come back strong with another member of the family and re-established. So if you do get a chance, definitely have a try of some of the Stoke beers from the McCashin family brewery. But I hope you've enjoyed this beer review. Please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer, and let me know some of the other ones that you would recommend from this brewery in the comment section below. I hope you've enjoyed this kind of mini series of a dozen Kiwi craft beers, and please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff, and I will catch you soon with my next reviews. You'll get some Queensland beer reviews next. Cheers.